Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with another weekly Q&A. This is for the 27th of June 2017 or season 3 episode 2. So anyways, getting straight into the questions.
A lot of them Injustice 2 actually this week.
Pretty much
Not
all of them.
Yeah.
First one comes from Lisa Peacock and they say, "Hi BDCKR. I have an Injustice 2 question. Have y'all found that you can move up fast in multiplayer with lower characters like you can in Injustice 1? Thanks."
And so I'm going to say nope, probably not. And there's a few sort of inherent structural kind of problems with it, right?
Yeah.
First is the hugely long load times. And that means you've got a real rate limiting step for how fast you can accumulate arena points.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to use lower stat teams, you're going to need to play a lot more games because each fight gives you fewer points. But the long load times means it's really hard to catch up making fewer points per fight when it takes so long to get through fights. Because at some point, you're just not going to be able to generate enough points. There's not enough time to fight more.
Yeah.
So that's the first part. But the second is this huge paywall, right? So it costs money to have more cards on your roster. I mean, you can say that you put in time, but the time it takes, it's not just putting in time each day. It's going to be literally like weeks and months to make up for the huge sort of head start you can get with money.
Yeah.
So without a lot of cards, it's hard to make up ground against guys with higher stat teams.
Mm-hmm.
So, having lots of cards and lots of time. So the third, it's the math involved in assigning arena points, right? So let's say you have a decent team with a threat score of 60 to 70,000 like we did in the video that we posted where we took our 60-something thousand stat team and tried to pick some of the higher stat opponents to get more points out of it. So that's fine, but if you break them up, they're individually somewhere around, say, 20,000 each. And since you get to choose teams, if you take each of the cards and play them individually, so three cards, 5 fights each, that's 15 fights against 20,000 threat teams, you'll get about 2,500 points for each fight for a total of 37,500. And I guess I can break down some of the math, but if you're playing them as a team together, how much you get out of them instead of breaking them individually, it'll depend on how lucky you are at getting higher threat teams and how careful you are at not going for the cheap fights.
Mm-hmm.
So referring back to that same video where we took our 64,000 threat team and the best team that we were able to find was a 140,000 team, you'll really see the differences. So if you had all 5 fights in the 85 to 90,000 range, which is still stronger than your team, and you don't always get those, you're making about 3/4 of the arena points, so 28,750.
Which is a pretty steep drop off.
Yeah, and even if and you think, okay, so maybe I'll just hunt for really strong teams. But if you take 140,000 threat teams for every fight, all 5, that's 7,250 per fight, and that's a total of 36,250, which is still less than the original 37,500 for breaking them up into one-man teams.
Yeah, and that's also the other issue is that that's not actually a consistently like a threat level to search for. You're not going to get that high teams every time. That's actually going to be the exception more than it is going to be the standard.
And again, if you end up losing to a team that's too high a threat, then you've just blown your energy pips. And then the math gets even worse for you, right?
Yeah, so it depends on how efficient you want to be point wise and how efficient you're going to be time wise. But you're essentially going to have to make a trade off no matter what you do there.
Right, and I guess the point of that is that if you're willing to play spend 3 times as much time playing, you can generate more points. But it's still not a huge enough difference for most people to make up for that time. So this setup, the way it works, these numbers, it favors hugely the guys with bigger and stronger rosters, so they get way more arena points for the time spent playing, and they burn through they burn through a much larger roster to get there because they've got it, right?
Yeah.
So they have big teams, they might use them up, and it's not as efficient as far as getting energy per pip.
But it's way more time efficient.
Sorry, arena points, yeah.
Yeah.
But they get way more arena points for the time they spend playing.
Mm-hmm. So it's really hard with a small roster. I guess the weaker guys is you're just getting even less points for the time you put in, even if you're doing a full team. So really, the best case scenario for playing arena is to for time efficiency is to have just so many guys to burn through that you don't even care, right? Like enough guys that theoretically you could almost just keep cycling around if you were really playing all of them out.
And that really doesn't happen. I mean, it takes a long time to build up a big roster, unless you're willing to shell out big bucks, right? So I guess it boils down to, if you don't have a big strong roster but you have lots of time, you play teams with just one card. But if you don't have a big roster and you don't have lots of time, you're not going to get very far, which is what I think we're talking about when you say using sort of lower stat teams, right?
Yeah, you're at a disadvantage for sure. So there we go. Our next question comes from Arshid, alibhai, and they say, guys, for Injustice 2, new players should only focus on daily achievement and ops. Don't waste time on campaign until you get a decent roster. I haven't spent a dime yet, will not until after the next update, and then only if they improve the app.
So I think Arshid, again, another regular like Lisa, thanks for the question. You are absolutely right. If we're talking about the most effective use of your time, daily achievements, they'll level up your account, it'll increase your max energy, and it'll give you lots of rewards. And operations are a great way to improve without playing. However, even if you're not playing, you still need to keep coming back to the game to start new operations when the old ones end. And since there's a maximum of 3 operations running at any one time, you're missing out on the experience you would get for pushing through the campaign for all your other characters, right? So your overall roster, aside from the 3 guys that you're sticking in the operations, stays relatively weak. So it makes it harder to do the resource missions, it makes it harder to get higher arena points. So, and like I said, if you're doing this, it's efficient use of your time, but you're going to miss out on a bunch of the arena awards that you get for putting in the time there.
Yeah.
So this might be a funky kind of analogy, and maybe I'm going to go in the wrong direction, but in my mind, it's a lot like the frustration that people have with exercise. If there isn't enough measurable progress, then it feels like you're really getting nowhere. So you need to set intermediate goals for yourself so that you get a little bit of positive feedback when you meet those sort of step goals, right? And you get the satisfaction of knowing that you're getting closer to your ultimate goal if you planned it well enough.
Yeah.
But the difference, to me, the key difference between this and exercise, though, is that it makes sense to have long-term fitness goals because, you know, I'm not going to be dead. Well, I don't expect to be dead in 5 years, and I'm going to see the benefit of getting stronger, of getting healthier. But if we're talking about a mobile game, there's a good chance that in 5 years it's going to be replaced by something new, and all the work or maybe even money you put in won't be worth anything. I mean, look at Injustice 1, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people are I don't want to be one of the naysayers, but people are talking about how Injustice 1 is slowly dying because the updates are coming slow. And it could be just that the devs are busy with Injustice 2, right? The new thing.
Yeah, I think there's definitely kind of attention allocation. But I think if really everybody's having as much trouble with Injustice 2 as they say they are, and people really want Injustice 1 to come back that bad, and they see it, I think I think they will to a certain degree listen to our input on that.
Yeah, but I mean that's the exception, right? Most mobile games don't really have a life cycle that's that long.
For sure, we've been lucky with what we've got so far.
Now, and again, all these considerations don't really matter if you're having fun playing, but just from my experience, Injustice 2, it strikes me as being a little lacking in that, you know, the joy.
Yeah.
Compared to Injustice 1. I still have trouble saying Injustice 1. It still sounds wrong.
The Great War.
Yeah, the Great War. I'm still playing it for now because, you know, obsessive compulsive, but right now it's more of a chore than fun. Yeah,
so I think that's true. Like the problem with playing just daily objectives and ops is it's okay if that's the way that you find the most joy in playing it, but like when you kind of have a laundry list of stuff that you feel like you need to check in every day to do this, this, and this, and that's the only reason why you're playing, for me that's when the game becomes less fun and more like closer to work, right? Like even doing these YouTube videos doesn't feel like as much work as doing a daily check-in and a certain amount of play just to get those like objective points, just to get that essentially check things off a list to get that a little bit closer to whatever your specific end goal is. I feel like that becomes more important than the end goal, and that's when I feel like it's not important. Like even for these videos, I still feel like the end goal is still the most important thing, which is just for us to have fun.
Yep.
And I feel like Injustice 2, especially when you kind of say like when there's entire kind of chunks of the game that you say you should ignore because it it doesn't make sense to use them. I think there's an issue in design there, but I also think there's an issue in kind of letting yourself think that way, especially if like me, that part of it isn't as fun to you, is thinking about it in that kind of super regimented way where even if a place is kind of fun, even if that's like, you know, a place that you can actually do some playing, it doesn't make sense to do it. I don't like that. Just in general.
I can't find anything to disagree with there.
Yeah. Okay. Our next question comes from Lloyd Banks, and it's also
a follow-up from last
it's a follow-up from last week. We've got a thread going. He says, haha, hi to you too. Thanks once again for the response. Here's the thing. I have the Injustice 1 mindset. In Injustice 1, I started a lot of accounts, and I said, these 3 gonna be my team. I collect them, promote them, and grind only with them. Now that I started Injustice 2, I see that this is more hard and random. I personally like it, more interesting and not easy to finish, but you can have the opportunity to choose who you want to. All the golds that I liked are from Arena and Objectives, and not from the packs, so I can say I choose. I asked this question because I find some silvers interesting. Low level and star are very similar to golds, so I am confused to which trio is going to be best suited for me.
So, alright, so this is interesting, and which is why we chose this for a follow-up question. The problem is that a 5-star silver can be as good or better than a 4-star gold if everything else, you know, gear level, abilities, everything else being equal. And getting silvers is a little easier than getting golds. I want to say a lot, but even with relative difference, getting silvers max out is also really hard. And this is one of the I was thinking of this the other day. When you get a silver in the crate, you get 10 shards. And that's fine for the first copy because you're getting 2 stars.
Yeah.
I think, or is it 1 star? I can't remember even. But the gold, even though they're less common, when you get a gold, you get 160 shards.
Which is a lot.
Right, so you don't need to hit as many times. And even though it's easier to get a silver, it might be easier, ultimately, to get a gold maxed out if you're lucky enough to get a 5-star gold out of the crates.
Yeah, and I guess you talk about how you can say you get to choose because essentially the gold characters that you want are in formats where you can work towards them instead of just getting them randomly, and that's really good. The problem is it doesn't feel like that to us because even if it happens to be the guys that we want, right? Like even if, for example, in Injustice 1, like the challenge characters, right? Even if that's the guy that we want, it's not really choosing the same way, right? Like if the stuff in the store was locked line, so it happens to work out in a way that you're okay with, and it's a good positive mindset to have, but it's not one that we can really adopt the same way. It's not how we feel about stuff.
Yeah. But all right, so going to your specific question, like which guys are good, one of the best silvers I think actually is Dr. Fate. I'm having a lot of success with a team of Dr. Fate, and so a silver, and Horrific Scarecrow, which is a gold, and a third card that varies depending on which class we want, but lately we've been using Arkham Knight Batman a lot.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have Scarecrow 5 stars, we probably wouldn't have invested the time in improving him. So it's really, part of it was the luck of getting him, and then realizing once we started playing him how much we like him. So you like Arena Golds. Problem is that they're expensive. So the Golds are 160 shards for the first 3-star version, and I can't remember exactly how much it is to get to 4 stars, but I'm thinking it's like 200.
Yeah.
And then to 5 stars, I can't remember the last one, maybe like 400 something. Something like that, but it's not trivial, right? And they sell the Arena Golds at basically the equivalent of 50 arena points for 5, so 10 arena points per shard that you're getting. But in any case, let's say you're making Elite 2 every week. There's a big jump from 250 to 400 arena points, right? So 5 hero shards at 50 arena points, that's 160 shards, will cost you 1,600 points. That's 4 weeks of consistently Elite 2 or better, or 6 to 7 weeks if you're Elite 1, so just one level down. And that's only a 3-star gold. So this is, to me, this is the same paywall I've been complaining about since the beginning. If you don't already have a decent 4 or even 5-star gold, it's going to take you a lot of time or money to rank high enough in Arena to achieve the rankings and then get what you want out of the Arena store.
Yeah.
So it comes back to me to the idea of investing time or money or both on a mobile game that has a real uncertain life expectancy. I mean, when we first started playing Injustice Gods Among Us, I had no idea we'd be doing this for years.
Yeah, it was honestly just like thing we were doing because we had no Wi-Fi for a while. Basically,
That's right.
We had to plan for content when we had no way of infusing new content, and I had seen somebody playing Injustice, watched them play a little bit. It looked cool. I liked the idea of playing with heroes, and that's how it started. But we weren't actually expecting it to really last past, like, I don't know. I was thinking it would just be a diversion for like a week.
Yeah.
Hopefully it would last the whole week was my plan.
Yeah.
And by the end of the week, I was trying as hard as possible to grind like at least 100,000 credits a day so I could get more Red Sun packs.
I remember grinding Bonus Battle 1.
Yeah, ooh. With bronze characters,
Yeah.
I do remember that, yeah.
So, yeah, Lloyd, you know what? I am really glad you're liking it. I just wish we could have the same experience as that.
So there we go. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks to everybody who asked a question. We'll see you guys next time.